Christopher Nolan is one of the most visionary directors of our time, but have you ever wondered what films inspired him? Number 5 on this list influenced one of his most famous action sequences, while number 8 was so terrifying, it left Nolan speechless as a kid. Trust me, you'll want to add these to your watch list. Christopher Nolan has a thing for films that focus on the dynamics between desperate men, and The Hit is a prime example. Directed by Stephen Frears, this 1984 British crime film follows two hitmen transporting a criminal to Paris for execution. Nolan raved about the film, saying it's one of the few that dares to gamble everything on its portrayal of human tension. Tim Roth delivers a standout early performance, and Terrence Stamp makes a powerful comeback. It's gritty, tense, and exactly the kind of minimalist storytelling that Nolan loves. Nolan is such a fan of Quentin Tarantino's The Hateful Eight that he even hosted a 70mm screening for the Directors Guild of America back in 2015. He's particularly in love with the film's throwback roadshow presentation complete with an intermission. Nolan's admiration for the movie goes beyond just its Western setting. He was blown away by its formalism, camera work, and the way Tarantino crafted each shot with an incredible sense of history. Nolan was so captivated by David Bowie's acting chops in Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence, that he later cast him in The Prestige. Directed by Nagisa Oshima, this 1983 war film is one of the rare movies that fully captures Bowie's charisma. Set in a Japanese prisoners of war camp during World War II, the film is haunting and emotional, with Bowie at the heart of its complex web of relationships. Nolan has praised how Oshima tailor-made the film for Bowie, and it's easy to see why. In a rare moment of promoting someone else's work, Nolan praised Godzilla Minus One in a 2023 interview with director Takashi Yamazaki. Set in the post-World War II era, this Japanese film brings a deeper emotional core to the typical kaiju chaos. Nolan called it a tremendous film, particularly applauding its stunning mechanics and underlying depth. The movie grossed $116 million worldwide on a $15 million budget, becoming the most successful Japanese Godzilla film. It's not every day you see Nolan hyping a monster movie, but when he does, you know it's worth a watch. Nolan is one of the biggest James Bond fanboys in Hollywood, and one of his top favorites is On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Sometimes considered the black sheep of the franchise due to being the only film headlined by George Lazenby, the movie is now generally seen as one of the franchise's strongest, thanks to the tragic storyline that sees 007 meet and fall in love with Countess Tracy, played by a terrific Diana Rigg. In a 2010 interview with Empire, Nolan said that several sequences from Inception were inspired by this one. In 2023, while promoting Oppenheimer, Christopher Nolan dropped a fun fact. Talladega Nights is one of his remote drop films. That means if it's on TV, he's not changing the channel. Nolan called the Adam McKay and Will Ferrell comedy one of the great comedies. With a box office of $163 million, this is one of the highest-grossing movies of Will Ferrell's entire career. All the way back in 2001, Nolan listed The Hitcher as one of his guilty pleasures in film comment. It's a wild 80s horror thriller about a murderous hitchhiker played by Rutger Hauer, and teenage Nolan couldn't get enough of it. He later admitted that plot-wise it's mind-bendingly arbitrary, but Hauer's performance as a Euro-psycho makes up for it. Nolan got to work with Hauer years later in Batman Begins. Along with Kubrick, Ridley Scott left a huge impression on Nolan during his formative years. Alien and Blade Runner in particular blew him away with their world-building and immersion. Nolan once told Media Company that Scott's films were the kind of sci-fi epics that truly transported you into another world, an influence you can clearly see in Nolan's own ambitious filmmaking. If you loved Interstellar, then For All Mankind is required viewing. Al Reinert's 1989 space documentary gives us real footage from NASA's Apollo missions, making it a mesmerizing look at one of humanity's greatest achievements. Nolan himself called it an incredible document of man's greatest endeavor. You can see why Nolan, who's fascinated by the vastness of space and human ambition, would be drawn to this. The raw beauty and isolation captured in this documentary echo strongly in the stunning visuals of Interstellar. Nolan's a self-proclaimed Hitchcock fanboy, and you can feel that influence in everything from The Dark Knight to Dunkirk. But it's Hitchcock's foreign correspondent that Nolan singles out as a major influence. The film's legendary plane crash scene over the ocean was a technical marvel for its time, and it clearly stuck with Nolan. He told the BFI that it was a direct inspiration for the aerial sequences in Dunkirk. Hitchcock was a master of suspense, and Nolan's known for taking that baton and running with it, especially in Dunkirk, where the tension never lets up. Few films scream epic louder than Lawrence of Arabia, and for Nolan, it's more than just a cinematic masterpiece. It's a testament to why shooting on film matters. Nolan has been fighting for the preservation of celluloid in a world going digital, and he's often pointed to David Lean's Epic as proof of the magic you get from film. During the 2015 London Film Festival, Nolan used Lawrence of Arabia to show off the subtle shadow details and breathtaking skies that just don't pop the same way on Blu-ray. Fritz Lang's Metropolis isn't just one of the first great sci-fi films. It's a cornerstone of cinema history. Nolan refers to it as a key touchstone for its groundbreaking special effects and expressionist style, which still ripple through modern movies. Just look at the towering dystopian cityscapes in Inception, or The Dark Knight's moody industrial Gotham. Metropolis laid the groundwork for the genre-bending visual effects that Nolan would master decades later. At the Academy's 20th anniversary screening of Heat in 2016, Nolan admitted he was initially skeptical about all the hype surrounding Michael Mann's crime thriller. But after seeing it, he realized it was more than just a cops and robbers flick. Nolan has drawn direct inspiration from Heat in his own work, most notably in The Dark Knight, where he borrowed Mann's grounded, intense style of action. Nolan was so impressed by Baby Driver that he interviewed Edgar Wright for the Directors Guild of America podcast. He praised the film's direction, calling it phenomenal, especially in its execution of action scenes. Nolan even compared it to Wright's earlier film World's End, noting that the choreography of foot chases and car chases felt truly American in their showmanship. Nolan is a big fan of Hugh Hudson's Chariots of Fire, the film that took home the Best Picture Oscar. It wasn't just the epic race scenes that stuck with him. Nolan has praised the film's visual splendor and the way its narrative structure defied convention. It's a British classic with radical undertones that, according to Nolan, became overshadowed by its popularity. For Nolan, Chariots of Fire was a key influence on Dunkirk, showing how to balance human emotion with large-scale spectacle. Few films have shaped Nolan's filmmaking sensibilities like Kubrick's Space Odyssey. He first saw it as a kid, and it blew his mind. The visual effects, the otherworldly atmosphere, the way Kubrick made you feel like you were in space. Nolan never forgot that experience. Years later, he helped bring a restored version of 2001 to theaters, making sure a new generation could experience the film on the big screen. The movie continues to be the ultimate reference point for sci-fi filmmakers, Nolan included, especially when he made Interstellar. Kubrick set the bar, and no one's cleared it since. For Nolan, All Quiet on the Western Front is the ultimate anti-war film. It doesn't sugarcoat the horrors of war, and it avoids the typical Hollywood urge to find meaning in chaos. The film's message is simple: war dehumanizes everyone. This 1930s masterpiece has never really been outdone when it comes to showing the brutal reality of the battlefield, and Nolan credits it with shaping his own views on how to depict war on screen, notably in Dunkirk, where survival itself becomes the only victory. Nolan has called The Battle of Algiers one of the most immersive films he's ever seen. It's shot in a documentary style, pulling you right into the streets during the Algerian War. Nolan admired how the creators made you care about the characters without resorting to melodrama. Everything feels raw, real, and urgent. This is the film that taught Nolan the power of Verite storytelling, and its influence can be seen in how he crafted Dunkirk, where you feel the tension and stakes through sheer immersion. Spielberg's Close Encounters of the Third Kind was a massive influence on Nolan when he was developing Interstellar. What Nolan loved about Close Encounters was how it humanized the extraordinary. It wasn't just about aliens, but about how such an event would affect regular people. Spielberg's ability to mix the cosmic with the personal is something Nolan aimed to capture in Interstellar, and he succeeded. Nolan always admired how Spielberg balanced spectacle with intimate, relatable moments. Nolan was blown away by Damien Chazelle's First Man, calling it a masterclass in how to depict space travel. But what really impressed him was the way Chazelle created a visceral, immersive experience. The film didn't just show you the moon landing, it made you feel like you were there. Nolan was particularly struck by the intimate, personal perspective Chazelle used, making Neil Armstrong's journey not just about history, but about the emotional and physical toll of reaching the stars.